So this problem asks us to graph at least two cycles of y equals negative 3 sine x. First thing to notice is there are two changes from the parent function of y equals sine x. There is a negative out front, which is going to flip it, or reflect it across the x-axis, and a 3, which is going to stretch it, which will change the amplitude. So let's identify some of the key characteristics. First of all, the midline is y equals 0. There's nothing added or subtracted. So let's just put our dotted line in there for the midline. The amplitude is 3. So that means I'm going to have a max of 3 and a min of negative 3. Not because of the 3 itself, but because it's 3 units from the midline of 0. And then another important thing we need is the period. Well, that's 2 pi divided by the coefficient of x, or the b term, so it's 2 pi over 1, which you don't need to write the 1. So it's 2 pi. So it'll finish after 2 pi. So it starts at the origin because it's sine. It ends at 2 pi. And now I have to find the other parts. So I divide it in the circle into 4 units, 4 parts. 2 pi over 4 would give me each one. So first of all, I cut it in half as pi. I'll put a point there because I know it's going to go up and come back down through 0 there. Half of that, pi over 2, which is about here, it's going to be the max. It goes up first, or actually it goes down first, I'm sorry, because it's a negative. Because there's a negative out front, it's going to go down first, so the first thing it's going to hit down here is the min, at about pi over 4. Come back up to the midline, then go to the max at 3 pi over 4. And that's enough for one cycle. Let's continue the cycle to the left, and we just reflect everything. And there are 2 cycles of that graph. So in this example, we're graphing y equals 2 cosine x minus 3. Now again, there's two changes from the parent function of cosine. It is moved down 3, and it's stretched vertically by 2. Now, these are all vertical changes going on here, because there's nothing sort of inside with the x. So let's identify the characteristics. First thing is, what's the midline? Well, the midline in this case is the line y equals negative 3. It's shifted down 3. So there's my midline. Another thing I do identify is the amplitude. The amplitude is 2, which means I go 2 units from the midline, not from 0. So 2 units up from negative 3 is negative 1. That'll be my max. 2 units down is negative 5, and that'll be my min. Now I need to look at the period. Again, there's no b term, so it's just going to be 2 pi, because I'm dealing in radians. So it's going to end after 2 pi radians. So no, where do I start the question? Well, it's cosine. So I'm going to start at the max and the min, and since it's positive, I'm going to start at the max. So my first point is at the max, which means my last point is also at the max. In this case, I go halfway between pi, because I'm going to divide it into 4, so I'll just cut it in half and half again. And I'll be at the min, and then in between, in pi over 4, I'll be at the midline. Both trig functions really follow the pattern max, middle, max, middle, min, up and down all the way. So, as I continue over here to the left, the negative x's follow exactly the same pattern. Now I can connect all the dots, nice smooth curve. And there's my function. For the function f of x equals negative cosine of 3x plus 1, I've got a couple of changes I really need to pay attention to. First of all, it's a negative, so it's a cosine. So instead of starting at the max, the negative is going to make it start at the min. I'm adding 1, so the whole entire graph is shifted up 1. And my b term, I have a b now, is 3, which means it's going to complete 3 cycles for every 2 pi. And let's identify our characteristics. The midline is y equals 1. The graph is shifted up 1 unit. my amplitude is 1. No, it's not negative 1. It's the absolute value of that term, so it's positive 1. So my min is 0. My max is 2. And finally, I have my period. It's 2 pi, in this case 2 pi over 3, or 2 pi over that, divided by that b term. So it takes from 0 to 2 pi over 3 to repeat. So now I can start plotting points. First point I'm going to plot is the start point. It's cosine, so it starts at the min or max. It's negative, so it starts at the min. It'll finish and end back there after 2 pi over 3. Halfway between is 1 pi over 3, so it'll be the complete opposite end, or in this case the max. And halfway between those, it'll be at the midline. And I'll continue this to the left. Midline, max, midline, min. And that's enough for what they asked for. And this pattern will just continue on infinitely. So in this graph, this equation here, I have y equals 1/2 sine of 4x plus pi minus 2. So this really has everything. It has an a term, it has a b term, it has a c term, and it has a d term. So let's start off by identifying our characteristics. So the first thing I want to look at is the midline. The midline, in this case, is y equals -2. Next to it, what's the amplitude? The amplitude is 1/2. Now let's identify the period. The period will be 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. And again, the 4 indicates it's going to take 4 cycles within 2 pi, or pi over 2 for 1 cycle. And I'm going to actually do a little bit more at this one because there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to say, where do I start? And so I'm going to figure out where I start. I'm going to take this term, this piece here, and 4x plus pi. This is going to tell me my horizontal shift equals 0. So I'm going to start at the solution to that. And I solve that, I'm going to get x equals -pi over 4. And if I just followed what I said earlier about the shift, the horizontal shift being c over b for the negative, I'm going to get pi over 4, -pi over 4 as well. I'm also going to use, I can find this two ways, the endpoint. I can just add pi over 2 to pi over 4, -pi over 4, or I can say 4x plus pi equals 2 pi. And solving that, I'm going to get x equals pi over 4. So, let's start graphing this. First, my midline is y equals -2. My amplitude is 1/2, so I have a max right there and a min right here. And I don't know how to label my start point. Because I'm sine, and it's a positive sign, I would start at the midline. But my x location of the start point, as I calculated, is -pi over 4. So move left pi over 4. Here would be -pi over 2. So right about here would be -pi over 4. So there's my start point. And if it's positive, I'm going to go up first. Now, the tricky part here is finding out how much my step is. So before I even do that, that should be a pi over 4, I'm going to label my endpoint, which is positive pi over 4. This is really going to be compressed here, both vertically and horizontally. Halfway between them, well, in this case it's obvious, but what you can always do is take your period, in this case pi over 2, divide by 4. So each of my steps is going to be pi over 8, and then 4 pi over 8 will give me my pi over 2. But in this case, it's a little easier. I'm going to go, and then there I'll be back at the midline because it's sine, and I'm going to go up and down. That's going to continue. What I'll do is just step over pi over 4, and then cut them in half. And remember, this pattern just repeats infinitely. Here's a rough sketch of y equals y equals 1/2 sine of 4x plus pi minus 2.